Chapter 12 Selling $2 million worth of O. Henry Stories. Table of contents. For more than 30 years, the Review of Reviews has been selling magazines and books by mail. For almost as long they have been noted for the effectiveness of their sales literature, and few indeed are the ideas that either Charles D. Lanier or Fred Stone have not tried. But in the fall of 1918, the management of the business was taking so much of their time that they had to delegate the copywriting to someone else, and the choice fell upon me. The joke of it was that the thing they had in mind particularly for me to work upon turned out to be merely a minor seller, whereas the one that was supposed to be sold out was our main leader for 2 whole years. When I went with the review, O. Henry's short stories had been selling in set form for about 6 years, and of late the results had fallen off badly, so I was told not to bother with it, but to see what I could do with Frank H. Simon's History of the World War, and to put everything I had into pushing Harrington Emerson's Institute of Efficiency. Well, I spent several weeks writing circulars on both of these. Then, while they were being printed and got ready for mailing, I picked up some of the O. Henry stuff and idly jotted down a letter and circular, merely to fill in time. When they were finished they seemed rather good to me, to Messrs. Stone and Lanier, too, so we decided to try them on a small test. During the next 12 months we sold more than 50,000 sets of O. Henry, amounting to more than $1 million. Of the efficiency course, we sold less than $150,000. We used several different letters on O. Henry and a number or ads, but the basic appeal was the same in all. First, we took it for granted that our reader had heard of O. Henry and knew something of the intriguing humanness of his stories. So we wasted no time with introductions, but started our letter with a bargain appeal, a bargain and a hurry-up. For the hurry-up, we had several different premiums. Jack London was the most popular of them. If you would send your order right away, you would get free with your set of O. Henry, 5 volumes of Jack London's famous stories. An old dodge, of course, but why worry whether a scheme is old or new when it brings $1 million worth of orders? Here are some of the letters and circulars that proved most effective. The original edition of O. Henry was snapped up at $125 per set, yet here we offer you a special edition, printed from the very same plates as the original sets, and containing every word, every illustration, for less than 1/7 the price. The lowest price at which the works of O. Henry will ever again be sold has now been reached in the new silk cloth edition, costing less than 1/7 the price of the original sets. This is the final bedrock price to you, and it holds good only until this special edition is exhausted. I write you because with all that you have heard and read about the works of O. Henry, you have never yet seen them. You have never yet had the privilege of actually handling the volumes, reading in your own home some of his wonderful stories, proving to your own satisfaction the marvelous genius of the man, the depth of his understanding and sympathy. The whole English-speaking world is going wild over O. Henry. In the past 3 years, his stories have broken all short story records since books have been published. College presidents, great lawyers, kings of finance, leaders of the nation, soldiers and sailors, clerks and working girls, people from every class, young and old, rich and poor, men and women, are all hastening to get the stories that mean delight to everyone. 50 or more of O. Henry's stories have been made into photoplays, and now crowd the best movie theaters. In the colleges, they are the favorite textbooks of short story writers. Secretary Daniels took a test vote at Annapolis on the most popular author, and O. Henry led the list, Jack London coming second. In camp libraries everywhere, the great demand of our soldiers and sailors has been for O. Henry. Jack London 5 volumes free, second only to O. Henry in popularity is Jack London, so if your order comes in promptly, we will send you free, with your set of O. Henry, a 5-volume set of the works of Jack London, description of which you will find in the folder enclosed. The number of these sets that we have, however, is exceedingly limited, so we can promise to send the 5 free volumes of Jack London to you only if your order for O. Henry comes in immediately. Examine both sets in your own home for a week at our expense. Send no money. Merely put your name on the enclosed card and drop in the mail, and both of these sets will be sent to you. Remember, there is no obligation of any kind attached. The postal order is simply an opportunity for the books to sell themselves to you. There is no sale, no obligation to pay for them until you have tried them out for a week in your own home and are satisfied. Just let us send the books for examination. The card brings them. Merely put your name on it and drop in the mail. But remember too, we've only a few of these free sets of Jack London on hand, and we will have to make it first come, first served, so if you want one for your library, send in your card now. Very truly yours, Important. Paper, ink, binding and labor have more than doubled in cost since this edition of O. Henry was printed. As long as it lasts, you can get your set of O. Henry at this low price, with the Jack London free, but this is the last edition we shall ever be able to make at such a low price. So take advantage of the low pre-war costs by sending in your card now. First prize $250. Second prize $100. Third prize $50. And 10 prizes of $10 each. Simply write us a letter saying which is your favorite O. Henry story, and why you like it best. For the 13 best letters, we will give the prizes listed above. See last page for rules of the competition. Dear Sir, the other day someone asked Judge Ben Lindsay, of juvenile court fame, if he wouldn't name his favorite O. Henry story. My favorite O. Henry story, said the judge, is all of them. No writer ever had greater knowledge of human nature, and the charm of his stories makes it possible to read them over and over again. Have you got your set yet? Most everybody else in this country seems to have. More than 4 million volumes of these inimitable stories have been sold to American readers in the past few years. Universities are planning tablets to O. Henry. Textbooks of English literature are including his stories. Theatrical firms are vying with one another for the right to dramatize them. He is the biggest, finest, most fascinating writer of the short story the world has ever known. Did we ever tell you what W. R. Colbum, superintendent of schools at Rhinelander, Wisconsin, said of O. Henry? I hope nobody will ever again send me a whole set of books like these you sent, at least at one time. For 4 days it has been impossible to get anything done about the house. Nobody will come to meals, or go to bed, or do anything else on time, but read O. Henry. We have no desire to upset your household, but it happens that we have left over from last year's big sale a few hundred sets of the 7-volume edition of Oppenheim's best stories. We are going to open this season's subscription to O. Henry by giving away free as long as they last one of these 7-volume sets of Oppenheim with each set of O. Henry. More than 350,000 families now own these fascinating O. Henry tales. The first edition was a limited one at $125. Every set was snapped up before it was printed. The new library edition contains everything that was in that limited edition. It gives you a chance to get the stories for which these people paid $125 for less than a fourth that price, and in addition, to get free the 7 volumes of Oppenheim's best stories. Send no money, simply sign and mail the enclosed card. It will bring you both sets, the 192 volumes of O. Henry, containing his 274 complete stories, and the 7 best novels of E. Phillips Oppenheim free. We pay all the charges. When you get your set, look over its fascinating pages. Read it for a week. Dip into it. Enjoy it. If at the end of the week you don't think the stories are worth even their original price, which you are lucky enough not to have to pay, send the books back. Otherwise, 50 cents a week makes them your own, an endless source of inspiration and delight and pride. Send the card now today without money while you can still get the 7 Oppenheim volumes free. This is your last chance. Sincerely yours, P.S. The sumptuous Caratol binding, more durable than leather, costs only a few cents more a volume and has proved a favorite. For this luxurious binding, just change the payments as indicated at the bottom of the order card. Rules of the competition. I won. This competition is open to everybody, whether an owner of an O. Henry set or not. 2. The prizes will be $250 for the first prize, $100.00 for the second prize, $50.00 for the third prize, and 10 prizes of $10.00 each. 3. Entries must be submitted in the form of a letter of from 150 to 200 words. State simply which is your favorite O. Henry story and your reasons for liking it best. The literary style of the letter won't matter one way or another. 4. All letters must be postmarked on or before midnight of March 15, 1922. Prizes will be awarded on March 25, 1922. 5. Letters may be typewritten or handwritten, but if the latter, they must be written legibly. Judges will take into consideration neatness and legibility in awarding prizes. 6. Competitors may submit as many entries as they like, but no one competitor will be given more than one prize. 7. What is wanted primarily in these letters is to ascertain, if we can, what it is about O. Henry that appeals to so many people. No writer of the short story since the world began ever had so many admirers, so many ardent devotees. We want to know what it is about these stories that appeals most to you. 8. Judges of the competition will be selected from among the personal friends of O. Henry on the editorial staffs of the world's work and the review of reviews. No one connected with either magazine will be eligible for a prize. When one likes everything that O. Henry wrote, it is difficult to make selections, but I think that a municipal report is my favorite. You will recognize the first O. Henry letter as being merely an adaptation of one of the follow-ups on the Harvard classics. As I saw it, the two letters had much the same job. The Harvard Classics letter was the final one of a series of circulars, and its job was to sum up the strong points of the others and then, by emphasizing the money saving, try to get immediate action. The O. Henry letter had the same job. For 6 years these same readers had been hearing about O. Henry. Anything they would listen to had to be in the nature of a final appeal, a last chance at the low price or premium or something. For the real interest, we depended upon our circular telling enough of each story to whet the reader's appetite and make him want more, but not enough to satisfy his curiosity or enable him to fill in the answer for himself. Glance over the When the Rattlesnake Struck opener, or to love, honor, and obey, and see if you don't want to get your hands on the books and find the answers. They contain the essence of L's successful circular writing. They get the reader's attention and interest and make him want to know more. Then the postcard makes it easy for him to get more. Here are 2 more letters and circulars along similar lines which did their part in bringing home that $1 million worth of orders. A saving to you of $95. The original edition of O. Henry's works was eagerly snapped up at $125 a set, yet here we offer you the very same stories, printed from the same plates and containing every word of the original set, at less than a fourth the price, and in addition, we give you E. Phillips Oppenheim's 7 best novels free. Dear Sir, for years you have heard of O. Henry, you've read the advertisements of his stories and thought that someday you would own a set for yourself. But you've put off the sending from month to month. The time for that is gone. Now today, you must order your set of O. Henry to get the low price and the Oppenheim free. The whole English-speaking world reads O. Henry. Universities are planning tablets to him. Textbooks of English literature are including his stories. Colleges are debating his place in literature. Theatrical firms are vying with one another for rights to dramatize his stories. He is considered the biggest, strongest, liveliest force that has broken loose in English literature for many a long year. In short, he is the greatest writer of the short story the world has ever known. So great is the popularity of O. Henry, so enormous the demand for his books, that we should like nothing better than to continue this offer for all time, but we can't. It costs more than twice as much now to make the sets as it did. Paper prices have quadrupled, labor costs 2.5 times as much, binding 3 times. So, we must withdraw this offer, but as long as the stock now on hand lasts, you can get O. Henry at the low price and E. Phillips Oppenheim's 7 volumes free. No other writer ever knew so much of the secret history of Europe as Oppenheim. No other writer ever understood so well the hidden forces, the secret intrigues, the startling accidents, the sudden death that have kept the whole continent in turmoil for the past generation. He was looked upon as the most dangerous man in England. He was marked down by Germany for private execution because he knew too much of her plots and intrigues. He suspected too many of her designs. Fighting, scheming, plotting, mystery, love, adventure, all these are in his stories, and all his marvelous genius is in the telling of them. He makes them so real that you forget everything about you in the joy of them. He lets you into secrets that take your breath away. He shows you the real inner workings of European diplomacy. He holds you enthralled with the romance, the mystery of his tale right up to the very last word. Your last chance to get a set of Oppenheim free. This is the last edition of E. Phillips Oppenheim we can get at the special price, which permits of our giving it free with O. Henry. When this one edition is gone, and there are only a few sets now left, you will be able to get Oppenheim's wonderful stories only at their regular price of $1.20 to $1.75 a volume. Now, while you can, Get your O. Henry set with the 7 volumes of Oppenheim. Free. This is your chance. The card brings you both sets, the 12 volumes of O. Henry, contain his 274 complete stories and the 7 best novels of E. Phillips Oppenheim free. We pay all the charges. When you get your set, look over its lustrous pages. A quiver with romance and action. Then, if you don't think the stories are worth even the price of the original sets, which you are lucky enough not to have to pay, send the books back. Otherwise, $500 a week makes them your own, an endless source of inspiration and delight and pride. Send the card now today without money while you can still get O. Henry at the low price and the 7 Oppenheim volumes free. This is your last chance. Sincerely yours. 34% discount from last year's price. Dear Sir. Down goes the price of O. Henry back to the pre-war figure. The best paper. The clearest printing, the finest bind that O. Henry has ever had in the pre-war price. The Review of Reviews was the last of the great book publishers to raise its rates. It is the first to bring them down again. 34% discount from last year's price. 1/3 off. That is the difference between the peak price of the post-war years and the pre-war price. Our own costs aren't down yet to pre-war figures, but we feel that the quickest way to get them there is to bring our price to you down where it ought to be. So we are making this big cut. It is our bedrock price, and it holds good only on this one edition. We write you because, with all you have heard and read about O. Henry's stories, you have never yet seen them. You have never yet had the privilege we now offer you of actually handling volumes, reading in your own home some of these wonderful tales, proving to your own satisfaction the marvelous insight of the man, the depth of his understanding and sympathy. Marvelous indeed are his tales, bits of life they are, really, about you and me. He finds romance everywhere, around the comer, in the department store, in the shop, in the streetcar. He had a sympathy for everything that was real, a kindly belief in the good that is in all of us. His appeal is universal. He writes for you whether you live in New York or Kokomo. He makes you his friend with his first story, and then tells you 1,000 others. Through the Shadows with O. Henry. It has long been known that there was a mystery in the life of O. Henry. It remained for Al Jennings, sheriff, outlaw, bronco buster, adventurer and staunch friend of O. Henry, to uncover it for us. For the first time he tells fully the story of those dark early days in O. Henry's life which cast their shadow over his later success. For O. Henry lived a life crowded with vivid incidents, hot-headed adventure, stirring romance. These were his in that part of his life which he so carefully guarded from the public. He was afraid the public would misunderstand. But here, the story is told so understandingly, so tenderly, that when you have read it, you will love O. Henry not less, but more, while they last. This is no polished masterpiece of style. It was written by an ex-outlaw, ex-train robber, the friend of Theodore Roosevelt and General Miles, and the most devoted friend O. Henry ever had. It has in it the rarest of all qualities, the ability to tell a story so thrillingly, so movingly, that you forget the author and the man of whom he tells. We were able to get only a small number of copies of this famous book. While they last, we are going to give one of them with each set of O. Henry free. Now, while you can, get your O. Henry set at the pre-war price of only 50 cents a week, and one of these few copies of Through the Shadows with O. Henry free. Never again can we make you such an offer. Don't miss it. Put your name on the enclosed card and mail it now today. Yours truly. P.S. There are many old admirers of O. Henry who feel that his works are worthy of the very best setting, and therefore they want their sets bound in more sumptuous style. We have made for them a real edition deluxe, bound in full Avant-grained leather. Our manufacturing department set out to make this set suitable for a place alongside of the other classics in the costly libraries of elegant homes. By making 1,000 of these sets, we have succeeded in making the price astonishingly low for books of this character, only $3 a month for 10 months, or $27 in one cash payment. Remember, this is for the full leather binding. If you want O. Henry to use And enjoy. The regular cloth edition contains all the stories, is handsomely made and costs less. See order form enclosed. $1 million worth of sales in a single year on a set that was supposed to be just about dead was pretty good, but the real test came with the second year. Could we keep it up? It looked for a while as though we could not. We tried several variations of the original appeals, but they would not work. Circulars which, the previous year, pulled 2, 3 and even 4%, were down below 1%. Advertisements which had brought us orders for $1 and $2 apiece, suddenly climbed to $5 and $6. Something was wrong. We tried all the different ways we knew, analyzed the results from every standpoint, and finally hit upon this, one of our most effective headlines in the previous year's ads had been "Before the price goes up." After it, we went on to explain that paper, binding and labor were jumping skyward by leaps and bounds, that we had on hand some thousands of sets manufactured at the old low rates, and that when these were gone, the price would have to go up. The argument was true, and prices of other commodities were rising so rapidly that people recognized its truth. But when the price did actually go up at the beginning of the second year, sales dropped to the point where they were no longer profitable. So we decided to try another kind of hurry up, and the one we hit upon was last chance to get Jack London free. Mind you, we had been giving Jack London, or Oppenheim or the mystery and detective stores or some other premium for some 6 years, and people had come to expect it. They had grown tired of hearing of raises in price, probably no longer believed further raises possible, but the threat of losing the premium was something different. Strange as it may seem, putting in that one line changed the results overnight. Back went the sales to the previous year's figures. Ads pulled again. And circulars. How they pulled. For the second time we sold $1 million worth of O. Henry books in a single year. The letters we used were not essentially different from the previous ones. They merely specialized on price and last chance. Aside from that, they went over much the same ground as before. They had to. For in sales extending over 7 years, pretty nearly everything had been said about O. Henry that could be said. So we put our main dependence upon our hurry-up for the orders. And the hurry-up did the work. In other words, as Mr. Lanier used to say often, it is not the copy that counts so much as the scheme back of it. In him and Fred Stone I had two as astute teachers as ever an ambitious user of the mails could ask for. They had been using the mails to sell books and magazines for 25 years, and what they did not know about it was not worth knowing. I had youth and enthusiasm and a flair for copy that seemed to bring home the orders. They had the experience and judgment to guide these into the proper channels. And, too, Fred Stone had the genius for handling people and organizing work, without which those thousands of orders would have been a liability instead of an asset. So we got through our second year. That ended the big sale on O. Henry. $2 million worth in 2 years. Seemed to just about saturate the market. At any rate, it saturated the available lists of book buyers, for though we kept trying for the next several years, the O. Henry sales never again went over the $100,000 mark for any 1 year. Then the Literary Digest brought out the complete set in 1 volume to use as a premium with their magazine, and that put an end to the set sale for good. What was responsible for this big sale? The same thing that is responsible for any sale: making your reader want it. We did not ask him to take our word for the interest of the O. Henry stories, or their value to him as cross-sections of human nature. We gave him enough of the stories themselves to arouse his own interest. We gave him enough, but not too much. Then we told him that everybody was reading them, that they were the equal of a university course in practical psychology, that even without their story interest they were worth all they cost just as a study in human nature. And finally, we gave him a reason why he must order at once, or lose a really worthwhile premium that would otherwise be his free. In short, we aimed first at making the reader want the stories for themselves alone. When we felt we had succeeded in that, We gave him as many excuses for buying them as we could think of, and a real reason why he must do it right away. And lastly, we made it easy. We sent him a postcard that brought the books to him without cost or obligation. For a week's free reading. We told him he could browse through them as much as he liked, see for himself how interesting, how invaluable, the books would be to him. Then decide. You might think that would result in a heavy percentage of returned sets. But it did not. Our average returns of O. Henry sets ran around 10%, and the highest they ever went was 14%. That's not bad, especially as most of them came back in perfect condition and needed only re-wrapping and reboxing to be used again. The payments, too, were good. Ordinarily we took the time to look up each order in our files and in the records of the Mail Order Credit Association, where the credit experience of some 15 or 20 companies is pooled. But when you are getting as many as 3,000 orders in a single day, you cannot always take the time to do this. So during the rush we shipped everything that looked good to us without investigation and looked up only the doubtful ones. Ordinarily we wrote off 30% of our gross business to cover returns, cancellations, collection expense and losses. That our judgment was not so bad in picking the good orders is proved by the fact that we had to increase that 30% by only 3% during those 2 years of rush times, and the saving in time and clerical expense more than made up for that. It is not safe to assume, as so many do, that 90% of the people are honest. In the early days of selling by mail that was true, but people have learned how easy it is to get goods on credit by mail, and the unscrupulous ones have taken advantage of it, with the result that there has grown up a class of professional curiosity seekers and deadbeats, people who send for everything that can be secured without a down payment, and hold on to it until forced by threats of post office action or court judgment to return it. The Mail Order Credit Association has records of more than 300,000 of these men and women who have fleeced 2 or more of its members, in some cases all of its members. If you guard against these, then you can safely assume that 90% or more of those who order your goods are honest, but not until then. These rules appeared on the last page of letter.